So you may be receiving an inheritance where your loved one's assets were held in a trust. When someone dies and has a trust, the trust goes through a process called trust administration. At our office, we help a lot with trust administrations. So what should you expect from this process if you're a beneficiary? How long should the process last? What are your responsibilities in this process? These are great questions that I'm going to answer in this video. So trust administration is basically the process where assets go from the person who had created the trust, called the trustor, the grantor, the settlor, to the beneficiary. And that's the person who's inheriting the assets after the grantor or settlor has died. So why did the grantor or settlor set up a trust in the first place? Probably it was to avoid the probate court process, which is expensive and it's time consuming and it's public. It's just horrible. So you should be very happy that the deceased person set up a trust in the first place. This should save everybody a lot of time and money. If you want to learn more about probate and why you should be so happy that the estate is not going through probate, I did a video called 10 Things I Hate About Probate, and I encourage you to watch that. So one question that often comes up is, who is representing you as the beneficiary? So in our office, we typically represent the trustee of the trust, that is the successor manager of the trust. We don't represent the beneficiaries usually. There are attorneys who represent beneficiaries, but usually they specialize in trust litigation because sometimes there are conflicts that come up between the beneficiary and the trustee, and those conflicts need to be resolved. And I have to tell you, I did 4 years of litigation and I hated every second of it. So I don't get involved in conflicts, and that's the main reason why we don't represent beneficiaries. And one confusing thing is that sometimes people think that there's an attorney who's representing the entire estate. So they represent everybody, right? The grantor and the successor trustee and the beneficiaries, everyone involved in the trust. That's just not the case. In fact, if the trustee is also a beneficiary, we don't represent the trustee as the beneficiary. You know, the trustee is, that person is wearing 2 hats. They have their trustee hat on and they have their beneficiary hat on, and we only represent them with the trustee hat on. I know, it can get confusing. So how long should this process take? So I found that trust administration on average takes about 4 to 6 months from start to finish. Now this might seem to you like a really long time, but there's a lot that needs to be done. The trustee has to work with the different banks and other entities where the assets were held. They have to file notice to different government entities. They have to collect the assets and get control over them. And if you've ever worked with banks before, they can be very difficult. The trustee might need to work with government entities like the recorder's office or the assessor's office or the franchise tax board. And again, if you've worked with the government before, you might know it's not the fastest process. Now, if you want to see everything that needs to be done during a trust administration, I encourage you to watch my video, What Happens to My Trust When I Die? So as a beneficiary, what are you entitled to receive? What can you expect? So the California Probate Code dictates things that the trustee is required to do when the settlor of a trust dies. So the first thing is they have to notify all the beneficiaries and the heirs of a trust. Now, if you're a beneficiary who's receiving a cash gift, like $10,000 or something, usually this doesn't apply. But if you're receiving the residue, you know, like 10% or 100%, then you are entitled to notice. And also, if you're an heir, if you're a child or perhaps a grandchild, if the child has died, if you're an heir but you're not receiving anything, then you might also be entitled to notice. So what does this notice look like? It's a notification that a trust has become irrevocable, and basically that you have 60 days or 120 days to contest the trust. It's kind of like speak now or forever hold your peace. They're also required to let you know that you're entitled to a copy of the trust. Now, there's certain situations where they don't have to send out notification. If the trust hasn't become irrevocable, like let's say there's a married couple and one spouse dies and everything goes to the surviving spouse, that the trust doesn't split into 2 subtrusts, then nothing has become irrevocable and the spouse continues to manage the entire trust. There's no notice in that situation.
Hey everyone, if you like my mom's video, like and subscribe.
Now, what happens if the trustee doesn't send you notice within the 60 days or 120 days and you think you're entitled to it? Well, there's no fine or punishment from the probate code. But if it's been a long time and the trustee refuses to do anything, well, in that case, you might want to get an attorney who can reach out to the trustee or the trustee's attorney and say, hey, how is this coming along? Where is my notice? Make sure that the process is starting. And let me mention that I also made a video called Trustee Deadlines. So I do talk about this deadline and several other ones in that video. As a beneficiary, you're also entitled to an accounting. So what is an accounting, you might think? Okay, well, basically it's a set of spreadsheets that shows after the deceased person died, what went into the trust and what went out of the trust. It's kind of keeping track of all the trust money. Now, for somebody to prepare an accounting, this can be a very expensive and time-consuming process. And the funds for a professional to prepare one of these accountings comes off the top of all the money that beneficiaries are going to receive. So you might end up receiving less money because of the accounting. Now, you can waive an accounting. You can actually sign something saying, hey, I know I'm entitled to an accounting, but I've chosen not to receive one. And that's just fine. And then you don't have to pay for that very expensive accounting process. All right, so finally, when the trustee has marshaled all the assets, they've figured out how much everything is valued at, how much you're entitled to receive, then you can receive your distribution from the trust. But you might be thinking, well, Ellen, I really need the money now. I mean, why can't they just give me the money now, or at least a portion of the money? Well, sometimes trustees can release a partial distribution to you, maybe a little bit of what you're entitled to, especially if the process is taking a long time. But there could be some reasons why the trustee doesn't want to do this. Maybe the trustee doesn't know how much money is in the trust and if they can really afford for the trust funds to be distributed to you before they've counted up everything. Or maybe there's just no liquidity so far. Maybe all the assets are tied up in a house, for example, so they don't have the money to distribute to you. Because once the trustee distributes money out to the beneficiaries, they can't demand it back. It's gone. And if the trustee distributes money out too soon and there's no money left for assets that should be distributed to others, trustees are on the hook personally. So you better believe that trustees can be very cautious, and they should be cautious about the timing for making distributions. Okay, so you might also be wondering, well, how much should the trustee be paid for all of this work that they're doing? Because the amount that the trustee gets paid also comes off the top, just like the fee for an accounting comes off the top from the trust assets before the distributions are made. So I actually just made a video on this, and the short answer is the trustee should be paid a reasonable amount of money. Clear as mud, right? So there's really three different categories of people or entities who act as trustee. One category are banks or trust companies, and they typically charge a percentage. So it's already written in their fee schedule. That's how much they're going to charge. A percentage, usually it's about 1.25% of all the assets under management. But then there could instead be a private professional fiduciary who's acting as trustee, and they might charge hourly, typically about $150 to $250 an hour, but it might be more. Or they might charge a flat fee. So that's how much they get paid. And for individuals, they usually get paid a bit less because they don't have the expertise. So they might get paid $50 to $150 an hour. The most that I've seen a trustee get paid is 1% of the underlying trust assets when they've done a whole lot of work. So hopefully this helps you understand the trust administration process a little bit better and what you can expect as a beneficiary going through the process. If you'd like to learn more about steps that people need to take upon a parent's death, I encourage you to watch my video, a checklist of what to do when a parent dies, and I'll see you over there.
Hello everyone. If you liked my mom's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all next time.